Oops, I was supposed to play an intro. Hello and welcome into Talkin' Jets reality check here on Thursday afternoons. What's going on? Matt O'Leary alongside Jeremy from Jets Chaos. Jeremy, how's it going, my friend, down in Mobile, Alabama for the Senior Bowl?
Well, suddenly I just can't seem to talk right. I don't know what happened. I got off the plane and suddenly I'm just down here in Mobile, Alabama. But here I am, Matt O'Leary, and I'm excited to be here with you.
It's a good thing that you love bits and accents. You're good at those. We'll get into the Senior Bowl stuff as well. If you guys have any questions for Jeremy on players that he's watched, let us know in the chat. But with all the coaching news, figured we'd start there. I haven't spoken to you since the press conference, the introductory press conference from Aaron Glenn. Any main takeaways from that you liked or didn't like?
We were actually driving down. We were in the car, and I put it on the dashboard, and we played the press conference. And I think that the one thing that both Dom C and I, by the way, if you're wondering who is he talking about, it was me and Dom C driving down. I was pumped. I mean, what could I say? I was pumped up. I was pumped up listening to it. Aaron Glenn is saying all the right things that I think that you'd want to hear as a football fan. I mean, for a team, right? I mean, you get a new coach, you don't know. He's a rookie coach, so you don't know what it's going to look like. You know, he's a really good, solid defensive coordinator, great reputation in the league and everything. But until he's up there in front of the mic, you're like, what are we getting? It doesn't tell us what kind of coach he is. It doesn't tell us. It's not results. It's just an introductory press conference. But he said everything right, and he certainly didn't embarrass us. There was no moment where he just for no reason said Duval. Nothing like that happened.
Yeah, I was gonna say I got some comments and some pushback on my excitement or just the general excitement from the fans on the Aaron Glenn press conference, and some of it's like, what can you really tell from an opening press conference or oh, everyone wins their opening press conference? I don't know. Did you have that same feeling after the Adam Gase opening press conference?
Yeah, I mean that's what comes to mind. Anytime somebody says, well, what's the big deal? Just a press conference. You obviously never watched the Adam Gase press conference. And Jacksonville just had a similar experience. There are times where you have a press conference, you watch the guy, and after the press conference, you go, oh my God, what did we do? And with Adam Gase, it was like, there was like a feeling that you knew every other Jet fan had to be feeling. There was a sinking feeling, where it was like, what did we just do? Like, is this for real? Well, you think you're in like you think you're just in a nightmare that you can't wake up from. I mean, from that press conference. So yeah, I think when you've been traumatized like that, the first step is to have a press conference where you're not embarrassed, where you have somebody that makes you believe, yeah, I could see that guy leading people. I could see that guy being a leader. Am I claiming that I'm not going to run out and say, that's it, we're winning the Super Bowl, we found our guy. Of course not. But I feel like we hired a very competent person who's a very good communicator and appears to come off as somebody who's going to be very relatable to the players.
100%. And like with the Gase thing, like I'll never forget where I was watching that. That was one of those where it's like I will just remember that for the rest of my life. I was working in radio at the time, and I had my laptop tossed on the press conference with a couple of my buddies in the radio station, and we all were just looking at each other like, is this really happening right now? And for Glenn, as you mentioned, came in, said all the right things, and something that really stood out to me as a positive, because he gets a lot of comparisons to Robert Saleh, first-time head coach, comes from the defensive side of the ball. How he handled the Aaron Rodgers questions, I don't think there's a world where Robert Saleh comes anywhere close to those kinds of answers. 45 minutes on the job, and he's already stuffing Rich Cimini in a locker about Aaron Rodgers? That we've never seen Robert Saleh do that.
It's such a shallow way to make a determination about a coach based on Saleh was defense and he was defense. Saleh was a rookie head coach and he's a rookie head coach. Same thing. That is so shallow and so ridiculous. That's like if one person was adopted and another person was adopted, you assume they have the same exact life and they're just like each other. It's like, I think that you're allowed to have some things in common. I mean, there's only two sides of the ball to come from when you're a head coach. Usually. And every head coach had to once be a rookie. So I don't understand this. I don't understand this perception that means they're the same. And I think that if you watch that press conference and then watch them handle the media since, especially with the Aaron Rodgers question, and this is not even a knock at Saleh. This is not even saying that Saleh was bad. This is me saying they're clearly two different people. They clearly have two different styles. They talk differently. They're very different than one another. So based on their background of what side of the ball they came from, and it's his first year, it's not his first year, that's not enough for me to ever think Saleh when I think Aaron Glenn.
No, definitely not. And, the hirings didn't stop there. We've gotten a little bit more information this week on some more coaches who are coming to the Jets staff. And we'll start with the bigger name as the defensive coordinator for now. Steve Wilks, officially introduced as the Jets defensive coordinator, spent 2023. That was the last time he had a position in the league with the San Francisco 49ers as defensive coordinator. They were impressive, honestly, last year. They were 8th in yards, 3rd in points, and 12th in EPA on defense. I really like this hire, Jeremy, because I think this is a guy that Aaron Glenn could lean on, because he's been through being a head coach before. And when you're a rookie head coach, you sometimes don't know what to expect. And I think just having the guy in the building, even if he, it's not like he had this great, successful long run as a head coach, but he's still done it before. And I think that means something.
No, absolutely. I think that, first of all, I think everybody got to get the results that he had as a head coach out of their head, because we didn't hire him as our head coach, right? It's two completely different jobs. So as far as results, look at the man's results as a defensive coordinator, because that's the job we hired him for. And it is a very different job than head coach. It's extremely different. Now, what we gain, whether he failed as a head coach, whether you think he was okay and just a victim as a head coach, or whether you think he was a great head coach, it doesn't matter. What we gain from him having that experience is whatever the positives, the mistakes he made, the positives, the good things he did as a head coach, whatever it is, he can share that with Aaron Glenn. He could say, it's somebody with the experience in the position next to him, teamed with him, partnered with him, in a room when they're having their meetings, to be able to say, hey, I made that mistake when I was a head coach, or something that really did work well for us was this. I think that's the whole point. I think that's what experience means. It doesn't mean the guy has to have, had to have been an amazing head coach for it to be helpful. Sometimes we learn more from our failures than our successes.
That's a great point. It's a really good point. Swamp Ranger is a member of the channel. He's not convinced on Wilks, said he hasn't coached in a year, and I don't think he can keep up with a modern NFL offense.
He's got that's a joke. Come on. He's messing around. Come on.
Well, he would go later on and ask why he wasn't hired last year. Or this one is what I want to pull up next. If he was that good, then why did San Francisco fire him? I unfortunately think he was scapegoated for that Super Bowl game against the Chiefs.
Absolutely.
I think they blamed him for that loss. And I mean, they had a lead in that game. And, Kyle Shanahan, unfortunately, this is a few times now in big moments where he hasn't been able to close out games, whether it's, as the OC with the Falcons or a couple times with the 49ers. And they pointed the finger at somebody, and it was Wilks in this instance.
And how did it work out for them? How was San Francisco this season?
They got worse in every defensive category. They regressed.
All right, so it was obviously a big mistake to fire him, I think.
I would agree. That's my point as well. I think they regretted it. And the guy that they hired to replace him lasted all of 1 year, and now Robert Saleh is back there as the defensive coordinator.
Yeah. Now, to be honest, I made this mistake 3 years ago, and I spent 3 years, and then this year the Jets humiliated me and made me change something about what I'll ever do. Same thing with Aaron Glenn. It's the same thing. I'm not going to sit here and say, this is a great hire and our defense is going to be awesome. I'm going to sit here and just say, I understand why they hired him. He has a resume that's reasonable to be hired for this position. I like some of the things that he's going to do. I like personally bringing in a guy who's going to build from the secondary, the safeties, look for ball hawks, a guy who focuses on turnovers. I like that better as a fan. I think it's more exciting. I think as good as our defense was, I think we didn't win games because we could never get turnovers. And I think that was one thing we never thought about with our defense. As good as we thought it was, we never got the ball. We never got turnovers. And I think that's why it didn't help as much as it should have in the translation to winning games. So I like him. I like the hire. I think it's a competent hire, but I'm not going to sit here and promise that we're going to have a top 5 defense. I'm not going to go crazy and overstate it. I'm going to now support him, and I'm going to, with the rest, hopefully everybody else here, I'm going to root for him and support him and hope for the best.
A couple super chats to get into. Double R wants to know, a little off topic, but if we keep Aaron Rodgers, who sits and learns, JJ Fields, I don't know if they're keeping Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if they would then add another veteran quarterback because you already have Tyrod Taylor as the backup, right?
Right. And you have Jordan Travis too. Now, the truth about Jordan Travis is he was a 5th-round pick, and you have a new regime. So we've seen that a million times before. We've seen higher picks like that. When a new regime comes in, if it's not their guy, if they don't like him, they'll just brush him aside. So that wouldn't have happened with our old regime because they invested a 5th-round pick, pick on him. So there's no way they would just give up without giving him a chance. We don't know. We have no idea how this regime, how this coach, how this GM, no idea how they feel about Jordan Travis, but he is there. Now, yeah, I agree. If A-Rod comes back, we have A-Rod and we have Tyrod Taylor. So I don't know where people are getting this draft Jackson Dart. Where are you putting Jackson Dart? What are we doing with him, right? And
unless they're cutting Tyrod Taylor and rolling with 2 young guys as the other 2 quarterbacks on the roster, but I don't know if that makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah. I don't know what, it just doesn't seem to be logical. And it doesn't seem like a good plan for a team that's so hungry for a franchise quarterback, that's searched so many years for one, and we haven't been able to find one, to say, let's use 2025, maybe as bad a quarterback class as there's been in the last 25 years, to go for our quarterback and pick a guy. It's not even the top 2, even if you want to argue Warden Sanders is good. Right? Now you're reaching so far. I mean, Jackson Dart, any of these guys that people are throwing the name out there, Milroe, they'd be the 9th best quarterback last year, 10th best quarterback last year, if that. Why would you want to take our shot at that? Wouldn't you rather wait till 26, which might be the best quarterback class in the last 20 years? I just think that we just need to bridge next year and make it to 26, and then you go for your quarterback.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And we'll get more into the Senior Bowl stuff as the episode goes on. But since you're down there and while we're talking quarterback, has the quarterback play stood out to you as a positive or negative from anyone while you've been watching?
No, and there's very little talk. I mean, there's some people who like Jackson Dart, but I mean, anytime he makes a throw, people are going nuts. But you have to understand, I mean, you know, O'Leary, we saw it in your audition tape when you wanted to be the Jets quarterback. You know, any of us physically alive are capable of throwing a football well sometimes. Like, it's like you can't go crazy just because he throws a good pass. There's other things you actually have to look at. Look, Jackson Dart could squirt into the first round very easily because of the position, right? But the reality is if you watch him play, his mechanics are terrible. Like he's going to be at least 1 year, probably 2 years. He's a project. They have to teach him how to throw a football. Like, yeah, I understand he has a good arm. There's a chance he could end up being a good quarterback if somebody works on his mechanics. But you can't give me an example of a quarterback with mechanics like that that's successful in the NFL. Like, he has an arm. Don't get me wrong, because he's completing passes and getting results based on a very strong arm.
Sure.
But you can't. I mean, if you want to know what I mean, we're watching him, and I'm no expert at it, but with him, it's so easy to see. It's like his bottom part of his body is separated and not the same person as the top part of his body. They're just completely out of sync. His bottom doesn't match his top. And I've never seen a quarterback like that in the NFL be successful. That's that awkward looking, that has such bad mechanics. So I'm not saying he's not going to be successful in the NFL. He's going to need minimum a year, maybe 2, because they're going to have to build him. They're going to have to tear him apart and rebuild him as far as mechanically.
Now, I'm not there, obviously, and this is just what I've been hearing, and I'm wondering your take on it. I've seen some clips, and I've heard that Jalen Milroe has been extremely disappointing try to put it nicely for him.
Well, his thing is, and I don't know if he's doing himself any favors by being here. I guess he was going to try him, and if he gets if he plays in the game, it might be different, because it's a perfect example of a player who you get him in the game, his athleticism will carry him,
sure,
and he'll do some things athletically, but they're not practicing that here. Like, that's not what practice drills look like. They're not purposely doing off-script quarterback runs with the ball. They're doing drills where you're throwing the ball, and that's not his forte. And like, people who love, you have to look in college, the plays that get you, whatever you're excited about him, the people who like him, really look at those passes and ask yourself, is there anything spectacular about the passes he's making? These are very design-specific plays. The passes aren't very difficult. But this is a kid, again, he could score it into the first round when the combines come, because he's going to score really high in athleticism and excite a lot of people. And because of the position, I wouldn't be shocked if he snuck into the first round. Do I want any part of him? No, because I am not against a mobile quarterback, a quarterback who can run and scramble and do all those great things. I think that's great, like Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Kyler Murray. I mean, these are exciting players. But, man, first, before any of that, you have to be able to drop back and throw a football accurately, and and do it more than just in a one-read design system. You have to be able to fade back and go through progressions and accurately throw a football. And Milroe doesn't have tape that shows me that.
We're going a little out of order on the super chats. We'll go back and backtrack. But while we're talking Milroe, Landon says Milroe will either be Tebow or Hurts. No in between. So, wide variance quarterback. I kind of see it, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, because I'll never sit there and say it'll never happen. Like when you say, oh, he'll be like Jalen Hurts, I'm not going to sit there and say that can't happen. I don't see it. That's my opinion. That's what my eyes are telling me. But I mean, yeah, it could be wrong about anyone. We're all wrong and right with quarterbacks. It's a freaking crapshoot. But I think that's a funny kind of way to look at it, like because of the type of player he is. He's like superb athlete, right? Like these guys. But is he going to be able to turn that into being a good quarterback?
Yeah, it's situations matter for these quarterbacks too. If you end up in the right spot, maybe he is closer to turning into a Jalen Hurts, or if he, ends up in a tough situation, has to play right away, we might get some clunkers and looking like Tebow's stat line from 2011 with the Broncos.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's perfectly said. Like what we should also say is it also depends where you land, right? Because I think that a lot of how the rookie class worked out this past season was based on where they landed. Can you imagine what would it have been like if 𝐒𝐿 was in Chicago and Caleb Williams was in Denver? I mean, it's a hypothetical question we'll never know the answer to, but it would make you wonder, right? I mean, you think about it, you think things might be very different for those two guys.
100%. Dante wants to know, if they wait until 2026 to draft a quarterback, who does he sit behind?
Who does the rookie that we draft sit behind?
I assume.
I mean, I don't know that. It depends on who you pick. I mean, my whole master scheme or my master plan is find a trade partner and trade back on 7 and get somebody's first round pick for next year and combine our first round picks next year to trade up and get Manning or get the prize quarterback, where the plan would be to just start him. You could extend Taylor another year if you don't want to do that, or you can go with your rookie. But I mean, I respect that. If Dante doesn't want to wait and he wants his quarterback now and thinks I don't want to bridge quarterback for 25 and then pick my quarterback in 26 and have to start a rookie or use a bridge for another year, it's maybe he doesn't like that. It's too much for me. But what I'm saying is I don't want to reach for a quarterback in 2025 in a terrible quarterback class. And once you do that, now you wasted another 2 to 3 years. 2 to 3 years. And we've seen how painful and how bad and how much it hurts an organization to pick a quarterback in the top 10 and miss. It's literally 2 to 3 years. That's what it costs you. I'm not signing up for that. So if you love a guy in the 2025 class, I'm not going to argue with you, but I don't. So personally, I'm willing to do a bridge quarterback in 25, start a rookie in 26, or run it back with Tyrod if the rookie's not ready. I don't care. I want to set up a future for this organization where we could win better than we've ever won before. And the only path I see to that is breaking this curse of quarterback and getting a franchise quarterback.
Yeah, Dante follows up and says, I agree with you as far as quarterback in 26. And that's where I am too. Just because, like you said, I don't love this quarterback class. And the two that I think you can maybe sell yourself on are going to go before the Jets have their pick at pick number 7. So, and to go back to the original comment too, you could extend Tyrod another year and have him be a bridge guy, or you could sign throwing names out there, but like a Justin Fields type or a Jameis Winston type guy to come in and compete with a rookie quarterback in 2026 if it came to that.
Yeah, and believe me, that scenario, it sucks. I know. That's why I was devastated this year when all this didn't work. That's why it's so devastating, because it wasn't this to me when everything went to crap this year. I wasn't thinking, oh, it's just this year, we'll be fine by next year. The reason I was devastated is I knew this is going to be 2 years of pain. Like, there's still a part of me that has hope because I'm a fan. So there's a part of me that has hope that Glenn is going to motivate these players so much, and we have just enough talent that we're going to scrape and fight our way into a playoff spot. There's part of me that still believes that can happen because I'm a fan, and I'll always have that little bit of a hope until we're losing games. I'm going to have that hope that we can win games. But another part of me kind of died inside because I knew the next 2 years are going to be really rough.
Couple super chats from Swamp Ranger. We're working our way back here, saying, I'm cautiously optimistic. The Jets tend to not get these hires right. That's why I put them under the microscope, and try not to make excuses for them. And you know what? That's a fair way to look at it. That's kind of like what you were just saying there. Like you're a fan, so you have the hope. But unfortunately, we've seen what this team has put us through the last few years. So, you might be prepared if things don't go that way. But, I will say, getting this back on track a little bit with Aaron Glenn, there's traits from him that you can like. And that's not guaranteed. I'm not sitting here today guaranteeing you he's going to be this awesome head coach. Frankly, we have no idea until he actually gets out there. but I think there's like legitimate, tangible things you could say about him and say, I think it can work because of X, Y, and Z. So I think you have, valid reasons to be optimistic about it.
I think that's what you look for as a fan. I mean, and again, I'm not going to tell anybody else how to be a fan, but I guess the only way I know how to do it is whether I was for the hire or not. He wasn't my first choice. The second it happens, I'm going to look for anything I can to hold on to grasp onto, to be positive about, because that's the only way it could be fun for me, right? How can I watch the games and move forward as a fan and enjoy football and enjoy being a Jet fan if I can't find some of the positives? So yeah, you're going to hear me when I talk about it. I'm going to scrape and claw and find every positive in Aaron Glenn that I could find. And whoever they hire as their coordinators, I'm going to look at it from the most positive point of view that I can. But I'm not promising anything. I'm not going to sit there and say, we're going to the Super Bowl, or we're going to, well, this is it. 5 years, everyone's going to fear us. Like, I'm not saying that anymore. Like, I'm done with that.
No, until proven otherwise, right? Maybe I'll get back to that point if they have a couple nice winning seasons, but I'm not going to get back to that at this point. Swamp Ranger then follows up and says, Glenn wants a winner. Will Howard's a winner. Do you have any opinions on Will Howard? It feels like he's going to be a later day 3 pick in this draft, I would guess.
I just don't know where you put him. Because first of all, we'll know by the draft if A-Rod's coming back. And that has a lot to do with this, because if A-Rod's coming back, we have A-Rod, we have Tyrod Taylor. Now you're gonna draft Will Howard and say, hey, Jordan Thomas, you're gone. We drafted Will Howard. That's possible because maybe Jordan Travis is not their guy. They didn't draft him. They have no connection to him, no loyalty to him. I understand Will Howard wins games and everything like that. I think there's a reason nobody talks about him as a first-round pick and why he's a late-round pick. I think, every single year, the quarterback for Oregon, the quarterback for Ohio State, the quarterback for Alabama, no matter who it is, Tennessee, from these schools, are always guys that we throw around the name. And why do you think that is? They play in big schools, very good schools, elite athletes, and systems that obviously quarterbacks have a lot of success in. That doesn't mean they're not going to be good NFL quarterbacks. It's not an indictment on them, but it also means you have to be really careful. You can't automatically assume that this quarterback's going to be good. You have to remember, well, he plays for a school that almost every quarterback that plays for that school is good. So you have to kind of discern. You have to look at the film and figure out, based on what you like, is he really doing things that other quarterbacks couldn't do, that really make him, oh, wow, he's going to be an NFL quarterback? I don't know that he won't be, but I'm really cautious about it. And so I don't know. If they like Will Howard better than Jordan Travis, if they're not Jordan Travis people, and they want to go late round and bring him in, I'll trust their judgment, because I have no reason to not trust them until there's a reason to not trust them.
I really like this question from Aaron here, saying, can you see any Lions players or Saints players that will be added to the New York Jets? Taking a look at, obviously where Aaron Glenn has come from. You could even throw maybe even some Denver Broncos former players in the mix too, with the GM coming from there. The position group that I find myself going back to, I don't know if I have any specific names for you at this point, but I think defensive line is a spot where they're going to look to bring in someone in free agency that maybe they've worked with in the past.
Yeah, there's little possibilities. Now, this is going to drive people crazy. I'm not saying they should do this, but none of us really know. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes. But I'm looking at Ben Johnson in Chicago, and I'm looking at Aaron Glenn here. And I'm just wondering if one of the two teams is going to very quietly trade a late round draft pick for a quarterback named Hendon Hooker.
Hendon Hooker?
Yeah, Hendon Hooker. Hendon.
Close.
And the reason I'm saying that is, if none of them do, if neither of them make a move for him, then it makes you think, oh, he's just some jag that they drafted that's a backup quarterback, right? But if one of those guys, if one of these teams make a move and suddenly trade for him, what that tells you is that was a guy who was stuck behind Jared Goff, who they really liked. And no one talks about it, but it's just kind of an interesting thing. I don't think it's going to happen, because I think he's probably just a jag. And he's not special. But if you all of a sudden see that happen, if either Chicago or the Jets trade some 5th round pick, 4th round pick, or whatever for Hendon Hooker, just understand what's going on. That they saw him in the background and think that he's a guy just being, that's just stuck behind a starting quarterback in the NFL and is not getting a chance. I'm not predicting that's going to happen.
I was going to say what gives me pause about Hendon Hooker just in general is they signed Teddy Bridgewater off the street.
Yes.
And he was active for the playoff game as the backup and not Hooker, who's been there all year.
Right. To me, that was the end. That was the knife. Like the knife. I said that to Tony, the GM who loves him. I said, it's over. I go, the fact that they took Bridgewater out of retirement, hasn't played, and put him over Hooker means they didn't trust Hooker. It means that he's not very good. And that's how I, deep down, I kind of know that's probably the truth. But if one of those teams traded for him, then my eyebrow would go back up and say, oh, why did that happen?
Yeah. And also too, I didn't love him coming out of the draft because he was already such an older prospect. Like he's 27 years old already. Right. And he hasn't played a single snap yet.
He's an older guy. He only has like 4 NFL snaps. He's certainly not the guy I'm sitting there saying is the answer. But oh my God, Tony's here, so we'll see what he says. But it wasn't a good sign that they Bridgewater. That was when I said to Tigo, okay, you win, because Tigo hates Hooker, and I said to him, well, he hasn't gotten a chance. How could you judge him? The second they signed Bridgewater and elevated him above Hooker, I knew it was over for Hooker. I said, oh, okay, I get it, because that means he's showing nothing in camp.
Right, and
if he was showing anything in practice, that wouldn't have happened.
Right, I was gonna say these guys, they've seen him every day the last 2 years in practice and training camp and all that. So, Swamp Rangers back says, was talking about Wilks. I'm sold on Glenn because he gives a shit. Don't understand the hype on Dart when Howard is huge and lit it up in the college football playoffs and championship game. I think the Dart criticism is fair, and the thing is, which is not great. It's not a ringing endorsement of this quarterback class. I think you can make a legitimate case for just about every single one of these guys why you shouldn't take them. And there's very few where I feel like you could talk yourself into going, okay, I could see why a team would draft them.
I mean, I guess if you can't see it in the film yourself, right? Like, and I'm not saying I can either. At some point, you have to trust every scout and every NFL organization. Like, why is Will Howard not projected to be a first-round pick? Why? Right? There must be something that we don't understand. Like, there must be something you could watch to make you understand why he isn't. But understand that every year Ohio State is great. They have these great receivers, and their quarterback has great numbers almost every year. All right. And one of them looks like he might be okay in the NFL, and the others aren't. It's not like, so some of them become NFL players and some of them don't. Right. Some of them work and some of them don't, yet they all have the good stats. So it's like there's something else you have to look for. I'm not pretending to be the expert to say what that is, but obviously the scouts and all of the NFL are not seeing it. They're not seeing that other thing about him other than he puts up big numbers at Ohio State. So I can't, and I honestly can't tell you why.
Will says that Jeremy's going to be sick if they bring back Aaron Rodgers, and I just want to know if that's true or not.
No. I mean, because I don't have an answer of what's better. I mean, the one thing that bothers me about it, it's not Aaron Rodgers. The one thing that I have 2 real concerns, 2 legitimate concerns, at least in my mind. One is I'm not thrilled about what it does to the salary cap in 26, because I really want to move forward and start with a clean slate. And by bringing back Rodgers, it means probably means bringing back Devontae Adams, which means there's going to be a lot of dead money in 26. And that's a little painful for me. Okay. But it's not horrible, because all the guys you got to re-sign in 26, you can do bonuses and structure it in ways that we're fine. Right. It's not going to stop us from re-signing players we want to re-sign. The other concern I have is you got a new coach coming in. You got a new offensive coordinator coming in. Are they going to bump heads? I don't want it to, I'm trying to start over. Like, I want to get the filth and the stink of what we've just went through out. And is Rodgers going to be able to just be a player? that this is our new offense. This is what we're doing. Is he going to be in sync with that? Is he going to be okay not running the locker room? Because the reality is he ran the locker room and it didn't work. So I just need him to be if we bring him back, I understand there's no one better. There's no better option. He gives us the best chance to make the playoffs next year. But will he just be a player and just do what he's asked to do?
Because I think that changes things. And that's part of my fear. Like, I don't want to bring Aaron Rodgers back if it's going to be, all right, we're going to run my offense. I want, Allen Lazard to stay. And, I'm going to call plays at the line of scrimmage and take the play clock down, so on and so forth. But if he realizes the situation goes, okay, I'll come back. I'll take the pay cut. I'll rework my deal. I'm willing to run Tanner Engstrand's offense. And I understand that it's just a bridge, probably for this year. And there's going to be a little bit of, transition with the new head coach. And, he's just another guy on the 53-man roster. Then, okay, I think you can make a stronger case at that point to bring him back. But the fact is we don't know right now. And Darren Mougey and Aaron Glenn are still in their evaluation process, which I think is fine.
Right. I mean, there's a part of me that'll be excited if they bring Rodgers back, because I do believe we have more hope to make the playoffs if Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback. I honestly believe that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Hennessy Heisman has a super chat. Thank you, Hennessy, for hanging with us and for the support. Says, we will definitely get a blue chip player at 7. I just hope Mougey can hit on mid-round picks and free agents. Also, what's the chance we trade down from 7? What do you think of trading down? That seems like something that you're really into this year.
I would love it, but I'm very realistic. I understand, trade down. Who are they trading up for? Right. So unless Sanders is not going to slip because he cannot make it past the Raiders. There is no question in my mind. I would bet everything on it. I would bet my mortgage on it. If Sanders is on the board when the Raiders pick, he's a Raider. So there's just no question in my mind. I don't see how Ward's going to slip, whether it's the Giants or Tennessee, someone's going to want Ward, right? So without those two, Abdul Carter is going to be off the board. Who are they trading up for at that point? Hunter's off the board. I just don't know who they're trading up for. So I would love a trade down. I don't think it's very realistic. I agree 100% with Hennessy, and I say it all the time. It's very easy. Any of us could be the GM. It doesn't mean we'd always make the right pick, but it doesn't take a lot to make your pick in the first round. It really doesn't take that much. I mean, because almost any of the guys that you pick are going to be realistic guys to pick. If you take Mason Graham, no one's going to fire you for that, right? And half the fan base or a percentage of our fan base will be very happy with that. So it's hard to screw it up. The real championship teams are built in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th rounds. These are the tough picks. This is where you fill starting spots versus teams who don't pick well in the 3rd, 4th, 5th rounds, who have to pay or have to find other way, either start bad guys or pay a lot of money and use up cap space to fill every position. But if you're good at 3rd, 4th, 5th round and you could bring in guys that are just solid starters and they're playing for $1 million a year and you're filling those spots for 4 years, that's championship level, football. That's what Baltimore does. That's what Pittsburgh had done. That's what Green Bay does when you're able to do that in just middle of your draft. And that's exactly how we have to evaluate this GM, is based on those middle round picks.
Yeah. And I think you can make the case that Joe Douglas did a good job at finding some guys on the defensive side of the ball in those mid rounds. I'm thinking Jamie Sherwood and Michael Carter and some UDFA guys like Bryce Huff and, so on and so forth, Tony Adams, who started games. But I think the issue was they never really found those guys on the offensive side of the ball, or very rarely at least. Michael Carter, the running back, didn't last long. Izzy Abanikanda, Jeremy Ruckert's been disappointing. Max Mitchell, Carter Warren. I forget the offensive lineman who got hurt, Cam Clark. I don't know.
And then there's the biggest of all. The biggest failure of all was quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. So He's got to be. That's my thing with the mid rounders is hopefully Mougey can give you some contributors on the offensive side of the ball in the mid rounds. I think that's
let's just to rewind. I want to put this little take out there that I have, in my years of watching football, in my experience. I think that you'd agree with Matt. Before you even get into the how do I draft first round guys and my middle round drafts and how do you build a team, coaching quarterback, right? Like it's very obvious. You need the right coach and the right coaching staff and the quarterback, right? If you look at championship teams, obviously most of the time that's where it starts. And then once you have the coach and the quarterback, it's hitting on those third, fourth, fifth round picks. Obviously, you don't want your first round picks to be busts, but great teams, man, they're finding those players. They're finding role players. They're finding starters in those mid to late rounds.
Exactly. They need to find more contributors in those mid to late rounds. I think that's really, really important. So while we have you down at the Senior Bowl, we're closing in on the second half of this show now. I wanted to get your thoughts on some standout guys who stood out to you at any position you want. So far.
Let me pull out some notes here. I'm always starting with wide receiver, and here's why I want to start with wide receivers. I thought after McMillan and maybe 𝐒𝐿𝐫𝐞𝐞, from Ohio State, like I didn't think it was a very good class. I was blown away right from the beginning. The first thing I did in the morning on Tuesday was check out the wide receivers, and right off the bat, 2 kids from Iowa State, 2 of them. Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins popped.
Okay.
2 kids from Ohio State. One, Higgins, think more of, and this is a Dom C special, think of more Sutton from Denver, like a tall, lanky, that kind of receiver. And then Higgins would be and I'm not saying he's as good as him, but when you think of wide receiver, you think of, like a Garrett Wilson type, like shake and get open and run crisp routes, right? And, and that kind of receiver. So are they as good as those guys? No, we're not saying that. These are they'd be first round prospects if they were. But these are guys that might hit, that looked really good and stood out. Now, here's the thing. So the biggest joke of the funniest, most ironic thing was when we got in and we're driving in, we were looking at the measurements of the players. Okay. Tez Johnson from Oregon came in at 5'9" and 156 pounds. And we were cracking up. We're laughing and we're like, my God, he's like smaller than Tank Dell. Let me tell you something. I don't know if any player had a better 3 days of practice and did more for themselves than Tez Johnson.
I've watched videos. He's open every single time in the red zone drills.
They cannot cover him. This kid is a real problem. If the right coach gets him in the NFL, this kid is going to terrorize teams. I don't know what they're going to do to stop him. He literally separates like I've never seen live. Like you can watch all the receivers. Nobody creates separation like this kid. He is wide, and he'll go from coverage and suddenly he's 5 yards open and say, what did he do? He had guys falling down trying to keep up with him because he cuts so hard. His change of direction is so good. This kid, man, my biggest nightmare, my biggest fear is that he ends up in Kansas City. Because I don't know what would happen to the NFL if Patrick Mahomes got this kid on his team.
Yeah, I mean, think of what they've done with Xavier Worthy this year. Similar kind of player, right? Like a small speedster guy. Sure, there'll be the videos of him getting abused in press coverage, but you get creative, you send him in motion, and you get him in space, and he's going to be an issue for you.
Oh, my God. I don't know if you use him as a specialty guy. I don't know if he lines up every play or if you just bring him down on 3rd and 8 and you find a way from the slot to spring him. But you're not going to be able to cover him. You can't cover. I mean, it's disturbing to think about. I don't see how you could pick him too high in the draft because he's 156 pounds. So it's hard to see him as this durable, every down receiver. But at the same time, I don't know. I think that people are going to be really wrong people are going to punch themselves for overlooking it. So those are the wide receivers. I think Xavier Restrepo from Miami, he's small. A lot of people don't like him, because of his size, but he's been very good. So the receivers for the national roster have been Really, really good. A lot of these guys have popped. I really want to look at the guys from Iowa State in the mid rounds. Like, I really think if that would be a good opportunity for us. If we got Tez Johnson, I would be doing cartwheels. Like, I would be doing cartwheels because he's just so much fun to watch. He would be the most popular Jet immediately.
I love the comment from as you're going through. I love the comment from Hennessy. Good thing Salah's not here because he wouldn't play. Was talking about how the rookies
exactly
on the field.
Well, no, but honestly, that would be the worst case scenario for a Tez Johnson. Like, in other words, I do think it's important when you have a guy that small that also has that specialty, that creating space, though, even though he's small, but you got to figure out ways to get him off the line of scrimmage. You need a good coordinator, like you need a good system. That's why I'm saying I'd be afraid if he was in Kansas City, because Andy Reid is going to figure it out.
Yeah,
right?
Or it's like Ben Johnson now in Chicago, maybe.
Right. Right. But he is a guy, and that's probably why he's not a first rounder, because he is a guy that's going to need the right offensive minds. And we wouldn't have been. We would have wasted him. We will see. We don't know. We're an unknown if we are now going to have the offensive mind in place to utilize a kid like Tez Johnson. Anybody wondering about tackles? There's a kid, I don't know, he might be moving up the board, so I don't know. It's hard for me to project where he's going to go, but here's a guy who was not projected to be a first rounder at all, maybe third, fourth round when the Senior Bowl started. There's a kid out of Boston College, a tackle named Ozzy Trapilo.
Ryan loves
Ozzy Trapilo. He is, he's been dominant. He's been great, amazing. We got a great interview with him. I watched his film. Yeah, I mean, it's been great being down here because I'm hearing buzz. You hear the scouts, you hear people, so you pick up so many names. I literally ran back last night and was watching film on this kid against Florida State. It was the best game we could find, toughest competition. He won every rep. I mean, he was great. He's a guy I'm super, super excited about. He plays right tackle and left tackle in college. Obviously, we want him to be our right tackle. So that's a guy we might be able to get in the mid rounds that I really like. I think our favorite player, me and Dom C together, we watched 2 hours together of him before we even came down to the Senior Bowl. This is a guy that most people projected as a 4th, 5th round. Dom has him in his top 50. This is a guard, the right guard from LSU, Miles Frazier. Okay. And the most exciting thing is we came in all excited to see him. How is he going to do against the big boys, right? How is he going to do against the best of the best? He has won every single rep for 3 days. He did so good the first 2 days, and this was completely unexpected. He did so good. They moved him to tackle today because they want to check out his versatility. Now, when you come into the Senior Bowl for practice to the NFL coaches as a guard that's projected to be a 4th, 5th rounder, and by day 3, they're asking you to take reps at tackle. That's a very special thing.
Yeah, that's a good sign, right?
That's a really good sign. So I think Dom C really hit a grand slam on this kid because he found him as a diamond in the rough. And I don't think he's going to be in a diamond in the rough much longer. So as another guy I want to just mention real fast that a lot of people ask about, he's a wide receiver. Let me get his name, make sure I'm getting it right. Besh. Okay. There's he's from he's like kind of like a sentimental story because he lost.
What position is this?
He's a wide receiver.
Okay.
He's a wide receiver. He his name is Jack Besh. He plays for TCU.
Okay.
He lost his brother, I think, in some catastrophe in New Orleans. There's a sentimental attachment. A lot of people are really cheering this kid on. And yesterday he made a phenomenal catch, and today he had like 3 touchdowns. He was amazing today. So I just want to say this. I don't know if he's draftable. I don't know if he's a kid we want, but he was really special. The other position that's super exciting, I talked a lot about the receivers. I talked about offense, is the defensive tackles.
Other position in need for the Jets.
Yeah, we definitely found safeties too. So, but the defensive tackles are like wow. Like Deion Walker, Walter Nolan is from one team. But the team that I like, the national roster, is Joshua Farmer. That's another Dom C special. Did not disappoint. Darius Alexander from Toledo. Okay. Did not disappoint. And then the guy who shocked me, best player yesterday for sure, and we got an interview with him today, Aeneas Peebles from Virginia Tech. Okay. So I guess what I'm trying to tell everybody is there's a really good pool of defensive tackles. So if we don't get Mason Graham, for the people who want defensive tackle, don't jump off a bridge, because there are defensive tackles so deep in this draft. This is such a great draft for defensive tackle. It's almost enough to make me say, why would I want to use 7 on Mason Graham when I can get a day 1 starter in the 2nd or 3rd round?
I was just going to say, I really like Mason Graham, and I would be totally okay if the Jets made that pick. But like you said, if they go a different direction, I could still be fine, because I feel like I have Dom's his scouting, his prospect guide for 2025 up. The number of interior players that he has that can go in the first 3 rounds is like 10 deep at the position. So they're going to have some options.
Yeah. There's going to be options there. There's some good safeties. There's this kid, Jonas. I got to look at this. Let me see.
Sanker from Virginia,
Jonas
right?
Sanker from Virginia. That's Green. I said to Green Bean, it's got to be your guy because he went to Virginia. Sanker looks great. He looks really good. Trey Rucker is a guy we really like watching drills because he's huge and he's super fast and quick and athletic. So that's a guy to look for. If you're looking at cornerbacks, there's 2 really good cornerbacks that I think will be not first rounds. Maybe this guy will. Isaiah Thomas from Florida State.
I like him too.
The quarterback that's really good. Also, Tommy Hill from Nebraska.
Okay.
Had a really good day today. We were really having fun watching him. So we got some cornerbacks that we might be able to get after round 1. Tons of defensive tackles. Definitely safeties. Let me see. I think there was another safety too that I really liked. There's so many, like Caleb Renshaw from Tulane, Billy Bowman from Oklahoma. There's safeties in this draft. And a lot of the people, more than Dom and more than me, like just other guys and other content providers and other scouts, were buzzing about they think this is a great draft for safety.
I love all the insight you have. We haven't hit on this position yet, and I'm itching to know. How good have the tight ends been? Because I've heard a lot of good things.
Okay. So, yeah, there's been some great, exciting things for tight ends. And I think we can get 2. Like, there's one guy I really want that I think is like a 5th, 6th rounder, like maybe even 6th rounds. And he'd be not a receiving tight end. He's a tight end too, like blocking tight end, but I think he'd be really good. And he's kind of free to add. He'd cost us nothing. A kid from Georgia Tech named Jackson Haas.
Okay.
Really cool, really great guy. We met him, interviewed him. Not, he's delivering on everything. You'd love him. He's nasty, loves to hit, loves to block, loves to do the dirty work. That's what he told us. And he does. He also caught a pass, which we were happy about. He can catch. But I'll tell you, there's the obvious, right? Harold Fannin made a one-handed grab today that would make everybody want to draft him tomorrow. Okay. Right. So Harold Fannin didn't disappoint. A new name for me, maybe a lot of you already knew him, Elijah Arroyo.
Yeah, he's been like unstoppable from the videos that I've seen.
Yeah, he's on the rise. He's making touchdown and exciting the crowd. He caught a touchdown and punted the ball into the crowd. So he's really good. Nice guy, 3rd and 4th round, maybe. I don't know if he's something. It's impossible to predict tight ends where they're going to go in the mid rounds. Terrence Ferguson from Oregon. I like Dom said it right. I was talking about him, and he said it perfectly. He's a vacuum.
Okay, catches everything.
Any ball goes anywhere near him, he catches it.
The Jets could use that.
Yeah, and he's a good blocker too. Like he's a complete tight end. Like he's a guy you can, he can line up inside. He's like he could do it all. I don't know if he's gonna be great, like not like Jackson Hawes is a blocker, but he's not like this limited issue. It's not a problem where but he can't go in line. So I like him. He's a well-rounded tight end. So you got Arroyo, you got Fannin, you got Ferguson. Gavin Bartholomew from Pittsburgh. He didn't pop out as much to me, but he's a solid guy. He's a good blocker, so he's definitely someone that you might see come along. And, with a name like Bartholomew, how can you be bad? And there's a guy that we were watching Miles Frazier's tape, and we couldn't help but notice Mason Taylor from LSU.
Okay.
One thing about what we noticed about Mason Taylor is he can't block to save his life, and he really needs a lot of coaching. I'm not just talking about inline. I'm talking about in space too. But as a receiver, we couldn't help notice that he's very good. So if you want like a Gesicki type, that's how I look at it, right? Just like a one-dimensional tight end who can catch passes. Mason Taylor from LSU could be your guy.
All right. I love it. This is a great breakdown. To me, the positions going into the Senior Bowl that I was most excited to look at were tight end, interior defensive line, and safety, because I view those as some of the Jets' biggest needs going into this draft.
It's funny because I didn't even talk about edge.
Let's do it. Give me some edge guys.
This is a great, and this is why you don't have to take an edge. If people say, if it's Abdul Carter, you run to the podium. We all know that, right? I mean, nobody argues that. You don't have to go crazy with edge and say trade back and get one or whatever. If you're a guy who wants another edge, you're not sure about JJ. This is this might be the best draft in years for edge as far as depth. I put it on Twitter. If you want to look at Jets Chaos on Twitter, I put just a picture of him talking. This guy, Landon Jackson, is a freaking beast. He is huge. But he's built right. Like you could tell he has the body of, he looks like a star, man. Like I think he's going to be like insanely good. One guy, there's an edge who left because he had the best rep of the day yesterday. Isn't it Mike Green?
Okay.
He had such a good rep that we knew he was going to leave. We said, that's it. He's going to leave. There's no reason for him to stay in this weekend anymore. And sure enough, he was gone. He left. Because
Jermaine Johnson did that a couple years ago at the
that's what happened. So this kid's from Marshall.
This is
his name is Mike Green. Yeah, that's me. Yeah, look at him. He is a freaking. Doesn't he look like a star to you? I don't know. There was something about his presence because I'm walking amongst these players. No one had that effect on me like this guy. Like this guy, he felt like it was like you were standing already next to an NFL star.
Yeah. Oh my God.
You know what I mean? Like he is just a mountain of a human being, and he plays. I mean, you got to see his play. Like he's a beast. He's a beast. He's going to be a problem in the NFL, and he might work his way up the board. I'm not really sure, but he and Mike Green, man, for the national roster, fun to watch.
Okay.
And there were other guys too that had their little moments and everything at edge, but those are the ones that really popped.
Yeah, Mike Green's a name that I've continued to see clips of throughout the Senior Bowl. So that's another guy.
He had a rep, dude, where it's just like ridiculous. He just threw the guy out of the way. Like he just threw the guy out of the way and just was at the quarterback. They blew the whistle really fast because they didn't want him to kill him. And it was just like, and then everybody, even the guys in the field, everybody in the crowd, in the stadium and on the field went, ooh, like everybody just could not believe what they just saw.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Now there's been a lot of positives, which is awesome. I think it's great to hear of all the guys who've done well. Is there anyone whose stock you think has fallen from what you've seen? Be like, oh, I was higher on this guy coming into it, but I didn't think he's looked that good.
I'm trying to think. I don't have anybody that meets that description. Like, because what it is there were like after the first day, I was a little disappointed with Fannin, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little worried and disappointed about Fannin, but after today, I'm not worried about Fannin.
Okay, and that's a popular one. I see a lot of Jets fans targeting him for the tight end in either the second or third round.
Yeah, today it really it came through what I liked about him.
Okay.
Like it really, and I don't think it was his fault. Like the first 2 days, he was just maybe also because it has to do with the quarterback getting the ball to you, and catchable pass, and he just wasn't connecting with the quarterbacks. It just didn't feel like it was happening until today. And then you saw and you said, "Wow, this guy could be really special. Like he could be a very, very good receiving tight end."
All right, that's good. I like it.
Yeah.
So any closing that we've just about reached the end of the show here, any closing thoughts on what you've seen down in Mobile and just how's the experience going? Did you get all the food you wanted to? Did you stop at Buc-ee's yet?
We didn't stop at Buc-ee's, but I got Crystal Burger.
Okay.
So it was not as good as White Castle. So that's, but we ate at Whataburger. We had a good time. But no, I think that my overall takeaway is this. A lot of people, and I think this is an incorrect statement, will say this is a horrible year of this draft. It's a bad year. This is a bad draft, and I don't agree. It's not the best draft to have the number 7 pick.
Okay.
But from the second round to the fifth rounds, I totally disagree with anybody that says it's a bad draft. There is a tremendous amount of talent in this draft from the second to fifth round. There's no marquee, guaranteed, can't miss first round guys, right? There's not a lot of those, but there's tons of good players and tons of potential day one starters all over the place. Defensive tackles, safeties, we said it. Edge, second round, there's going to be a lot of edges in the second round. Some of them are going to hit and be really successful in the NFL. We've got some good cornerbacks, really good offensive linemen, a lot of guards, a lot of things. There's a lot in this draft. So I think that people should really pay attention day 2 and day 3.
Love it. It's the unofficial start of draft season now that the Senior Bowl is underway. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us for this episode. Subscribe if you are new to the channel. I'm Matt, he's Jeremy, and we will catch you next week.